Who is the best Electro character? Let's find out. Let's start with the purple teacher, Lisa the Librarian. I think Lisa's kit matches her personality 100%. A little on the lazy side, but also powerful too. She doesn't necessarily have to move a lot when she uses her skills. Her elemental skill has two activation methods, press and hold, but to achieve max potential of her elemental skill, you should be using both methods. When pressed, she throws a lightning orb that deals electro damage and applies a stack of conductive status up to 3 stacks. And when held, she charges her elemental skill and deals more damage based on the conductive stacks you have applied to the enemy. One conductive stack can also be applied this way thanks to her first ascension skill. Her burst summons a lightning rose that deals continuous electro damage, kind of like Ganyu's burst but with an extra catch thanks to her second ascension skill that lowers enemies' defense by 15%. I think Lisa can be a bit frustrating to play due to the nature of Genshin Impact being a fast-paced game. For that reason, I think her biggest cancellation is C2. It grants her 25% defense and resistance to interruption when she holds her elemental skill, regardless of her slow playstyle. Dendro helped her a lot, so for me, she is A tier. Let's continue with Fischl, another Electro unit that has got even more value with the release of Dendro. She already was one of the best Electro units in the game, but she is even better now. Her elemental skill summons her most loyal companion Oz, other than that one time.
I heard that a great secretary named Oz brought the hymn of the Holy Land into the Immunakreich. I suppose that was you? Why don't you come over to my side? After all, Fischl is destined to team up with Oz.
Mein Fräulein flatters me. I see no reason to refuse.
And deals AoE electro damage to nearby enemies, which is a great way to trigger reactions of field. With her burst, she takes on Oz's form and deals electro damage to enemies she encounters. And after its effects ends, Oz will remain on the field and reset the duration of his presence if he already was on the field. Her C6 I think is her most important cancellation. It increases the duration of Oz's presence on the field by 2 seconds and allows Oz to coordinate his attacks with your active character, which makes it easier to trigger reactions. I think Fischl is still a powerful support and in my opinion an A tier character. Talking about amazing supports, let's not forget about Kuki Shinobu. Once irrelevant, Nav is an amazing Dendro reaction support. Her elemental skill is a great way to apply Electro and heal your active character at the cost of her own HP. Her first ascension skill grants 15% healing bonus if her HP is below 50%, and her second ascension skill increases her healing amount and the damage she deals based on her elemental mastery. Her burst creates an AoE field that deals continuous electro damage to enemies. The duration of this field increases if you use it when she is below 50% HP. Her C1 is a good upgrade to her burst that increases its AoE by 50%. Her C2 increases the duration of her elemental skill by 3 seconds. Her C6 is like Hu Tao's C6 that allows her to ignore lethal damage once every 60 seconds while also granting 150 elemental mastery when she's below 25% HP. All in all, a great Electro unit. For me, she is an A+ tier character. Moving on to the OG 5-star Electro DPS, Puching. She had her ups and downs, but thanks to Dendro, she's been having more ups than downs lately. Her elemental skill throws a stiletto in a straight line that can also be adjusted by holding the skill. After throwing the stiletto, you can either press E to blink to that location or use your charge attacks to activate it. Once activated, her normal and charge attacks will be infused with Electro for 5 seconds thanks to her first essential skill. Her burst deals AoE electro damage, and thanks to her second ascension skill, she gains 15% crit rate and energy recharge for 8 seconds. I still think that she's a solid A+ tier character. Next up is Captain Beidou. Beidou has always been a good character to have on your account, be it a DPS or sub-DPS. Her elemental skill is a great way to nullify incoming damage and boost her own damage. When pressed, she wings her claymore and deals electro damage to nearby enemies. When held, she lifts her claymore as a shield and absorbs damage based on her HP. By doing so, the damage of her elemental skill will increase with the number of times she is attacked. The more the merrier, as she would say, but thanks to her first ascension skill, you only need to counterattack at the right moment to get the max damage instead of waiting. Once you unleash her elemental skill with its max damage, her second ascension skill will grant her 15% attack speed and damage bonus to her normal and charge attacks. Her burst is a great way to deal with multiple enemies at the same time, allowing her to deal electro damage with her normal and charge attacks that jump in between enemies. Her C2 and C6 are a great upgrade to her burst, allowing the lightning to jump to 2 additional targets and decreasing electro res of nearby enemies respectively. The only downside to Beidou is that her burst sadly does not work with Raiden Shogun, but even then I think she is an A-tier character. And next up is the best character in the entire game, none other than Dori. Or at least that's what she would want you to believe. Her elemental skill deals AoE electro damage and launches 2 projectiles that deal electro damage to enemies it connects with. Her burst brings the genie out of the lamp and connects to your active character. Your active character will restore HP based on Dori's max HP and regenerate energy while connected. Also, enemies in between the genie and your active character will take continuous electro damage during its duration. One thing I use Dori a lot for is crafting character and weapon materials thanks to her utility passive that refunds some materials back and saves a lot of time from farming. At the moment, she feels very underwhelming, so I will be rating her C. Moving on to the first Electro Boy on the list, Razor. Even though Razor is an Electro character, his Ascension bonus is actually physical damage bonus. Thanks to his high normal attack scaling, which is insane by the way even for a Claymore user, he gets so much value from his Ascension bonus. His Elemental skill is a great way to trigger Super Contact to decrease enemies' physical res by 40%, and with his C4, he can shred another 10% by using his Elemental skill. His burst summons a wolf that deals electro damage, but most importantly increases Razor's attack speed and allows him to land more normal attacks. Physical DPS characters don't get too much love nowadays, both from the player base and Hoyo itself. For me, our Wolf Boy is E+. Next up is the most recent addition to the Electro family, Cyno. Cyno is the second and last Electro Boy on the list. With his elemental skill, Cyno dashes through enemies and deals electro damage. And if his burst is activated, his elemental skill will instead deal AoE electro damage. Talking about his burst, thanks to his second ascension skill, all his attacks will receive an elemental mastery scaling damage increase. When it comes to constellations though, they are mostly negligible, but if you want to execute your combos easier, his C1 provides a great attack speed buff. In my opinion, Cyno is a solid A+ tier character. Fujo Sara, also known as Electro Bennett. That's because she grants attack buff to your active character with her elemental skill. Not only does she grant attack buff, but she also grants 60% crit damage bonus to your electro characters that were under the effect of the attack buff thanks to her C6. Her burst deals AoE electro damage to nearby enemies and can also provide the same attack buff as her elemental skill. She can be a great support to your on-field electro DPS, and because of that, I think she is A tier. Moving on to one of the fan favorites, Yae Miko. Just like most electro characters, Dentor has helped Yae Miko have a solid spot in the meta, be it with quick and aggravate teams or Hyper Bloom. Her elemental skill periodically attacks enemies nearby with lightning that deals electro damage. The damage of the skill can be increased further based on her elemental mastery thanks to her second ascension skill. Her burst is one of her main sources of damage that deals AoE electro damage and also uses her elemental skill on the field for additional damage. By doing so, she resets the cooldown of her elemental skill with her first ascension skill. A most basic combo for her would be using all 3 charges of her elemental skill and then using her burst. Constellation animation-wise, I think she doesn't get that much value out of them early on, but her C6 is quite powerful. That allows her elemental skill to ignore 60% of enemy defense. In my opinion, she is S tier. And last but not least, Raiden Shogun. She can be played as both an on-field Electro DPS and off-field reaction support. When on field, she utilizes her burst to deal massive damage while also restoring energy to your entire party. When off field, she utilizes her elemental skill to trigger electro-based reactions to help deal strong single target damage. Talking about her elemental skill, when used, it deals electro damage to enemies that are hit and grants the Eye of Stormy Judgment to your party. Eye of Stormy Judgment will deal coordinated electro damage with your active character's normal attacks, which is great when you play her as off-field support. This skill also buffs your party's burst damage as well as granting them the Chakra Desiderata passive that stores resolve stacks for each elemental orb and particle collected. Her burst is her main source of damage when played as an on-field DPS, and with her C1, she gathers resolve stacks even faster. But I think her C2 takes the cake here by being one of the most broken constellations in the game. While using her burst, she will ignore 60% defense of enemies. For her flexible playstyle, I think she's the best Electro character in the game. Definitely worth pulling for if you don't have her. And that's the end of another tier list, guys. We are getting super close to 400 subs and I would like to hit that goal by the end of July. Leave a like if you liked it and dislike if you didn't. Also check out my other tier list videos. As always, thanks for watching and see you guys.